With Spider-Man 2 news hopefully on the horizon after such a long time without any information, I wanted to make a quick video going over things that I wish to be in the game. Some of these options that I'm going to list are a little out of hand maybe, but for the most part I tried to keep it in line with what the game has set up already and what should be implemented as a natural step in evolution for combat or web swinging. These aren't in any order, really. I have it separated for the combat between Miles and Peter, but for the web swinging, it's basically one to one, doesn't matter. Starting off with the web swinging, however, we have web tricks on the web line. What I wanted to do with this is similar to how the dive tricks worked. There are only about 5 tricks that you can do when you dive and hold square. I want this to be done for the web tricks, where when you're on the line, you can hold square, push in any direction, and Spider-Man, either one, can do a certain move. As an example, the front air trick that Miles does when he when he shoots the web line, he goes upside down. I want something similar to happen, but only on the web trick, so there's more options. Maybe replace the front air trick with a different animation, that way you can always be upside down if you want to be. For the trebuchet, I wanted multiple things to be done. The first thing is, I don't want it to just be to go over buildings. And what do I mean by that? The trebuchet, when you go up a building, you press X, and you send yourself over. Everyone knows that. However, what I wanted was an option to go down instead. An example of this would be if the building has a short enough length between the beginning and end of your trebuchet. When you trebuchet up, you have the option to trebuchet back down. That way you can just scale the entire building and then go back down to keep all your momentum for the very next swing. So for web zips, this would apply to the advanced mode and the normal mode, but holding L2 and then looking in any direction, you press X and you would go that direction. This means there is no limit to what the web zip can do. Instead of it just being a horizontal keep your momentum, which I would want to keep in the game, but with the option of holding L2 and pressing X, you could gain momentum downwards, upwards, or any other direction. Next up on the list, this would replace the slow-mos during a web swing, but dual web swinging would be so good for the game. Imagine you're going down the street, and in the middle of the swing, you press L2, and depending on which direction you use the left stick, you send a web line horizontally to a building to your left or right. That way, turning corners feels more like how Andrew Garfield did it in the Spider-Man movie. Something like that would be so good. With the web swing itself, it's kind of limited because once you start the web swing, you already know it's gonna let go eventually. I don't want that to happen anymore. That was kind of garbage. So, obviously, make it more like Web of Shadows or Spider-Man 2. Those games did it well, where you could swing to your heart's content. The web could shorten because of things in the way, and it had actual physical presence. The ones in the Insomniac games do connect to buildings, but they do not get shorter. You could see it many times if you play the game, that the web just goes through the building and lets you keep the momentum. That way it doesn't feel appalling. Now, maybe keep this for the normal mode, but for the advanced mode, if it exists, should have this option. And now, there is one more thing. The inputs for wall running and other acrobatics, like I said earlier, if there's an advanced mode, should be more than just holding R2. Every input, including wall crawling, web running, perching, all of it. Web zipping the points should be the easy access for perching, but pressing, for example, the dive button Now, for the combat, this is where it gets a little spicy. I'm going to start off with what could apply to both Peter and Miles. Now, when you knock away an enemy using any method, web throw, full square combo, maybe a ground pound that sends them flying, you can pull them back, similar to Web Yank Opportunist, but when you press X, instead of you doing a jump to cancel that animation, you send them with you up into the air. Now, I think this is already in the game because Peter does something similar to what I just described in the trailer of the game. When you punch an enemy in the air, you could also press square and X together for a ground pound. The difference being, though, is that you send the enemy down into the ground with you. This is similar to how Peter's air-to-ground finisher from the first game has him use his 2 web lines to send them back to the ground and punch someone or kick someone in the face. With the web strike, this is where I'm changing a lot, because the web strike, although it's good for keeping or closing the distance, it does need more inputs, I say. Now, the triangle button, you can press it again while going to them to kick them in the face and send you back in the air for more opportunities. This is already technically doable if you press X to jump off of an enemy, but it doesn't damage them too much. This would be that replacement, and X will have something that I'll say later. But the square button could probably stay the exact same. I don't want it to be Web of Shadows like that. That was a completely different style of play. However, the circle button could be the web throw, but faster. Now, what do I mean by that? The web throw, when you web up an enemy and hold triangle, you do spin them around, but it does feel slow because you kind of leave yourself open for attack. Now, you can dodge out of it, but it's because of how slow it is. You only get maybe one whole circle before you have to dodge. With this, when you press triangle, go to them, and then press circle, you immediately, and I mean immediately, web them and then just yank them in a 360. There is no time for the enemy to stop you, and it's really good for crowd control. Now, the X button would be the dodge instead of circle. Only during the web strike. This would be more tactical because you could jump over the enemy like in Web of Shadows and then go back for another web strike. If you were to go for another web strike after jumping off, it would be faster instead of the usual stop and then go to enemy. It would just be an instant go to enemy. Now, this is where I get specific. Peter would need his arms to do something, right? I suggest that he should be able to counterattack similar to the Arkham games to show progress in Peter's fighting style. Right now, he's more dodgy than anything, but with the arms, he could take the offensive. Perfect dodging would be the perfect place to put this, of course, because right now, all he does when you do a perfect dodge is web the enemy's face. That does help, but he could also web the enemy's face and then one of the 4 arms could knock them away, leaving them out of the fight for a longer period of time. Gadget quick switch not being in Miles kinda hurt. However, it would be a good option, since we have shortcuts now, to have a gadget quick switch on the ready for one of those button presses. And finally, because we are getting the symbiote in the game, I want the tendrils to act on their own further in the story to indicate their growth. Now, the arms, already with the perfect dodge I said earlier, would counterattack. But what I mean is that for the symbiote, the tendrils should act on their own, but pressing circle without moving the left stick in any direction would make it to where the tendrils fight for you instead, or counterattack. This is where we get into Miles, and this is where I'm theorizing how his powers work, because we don't know. The blue Venom power should help gain him more Venom, similar to how the induction mesh helps you gain your health back per venom hit. One more thing for Miles, because it's kind of hard to give him more things to do with how accessible he is, but with his new blue power, it would be special if he could use both blue and orange at the same time in one move. I don't know if this could occur, but it probably might have relevance to the story if it were to be a function. Similar to how he gained his ultimate ability of using all 3 Venom bars near the end of the game, which was hinted at many times. And that'll do it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and here's hoping that Spider-Man 2 becomes Game of the Year next year.